NASA. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration is a U.S. government agency that is in charge of the science and technology behind space exploration. NASA was established on July 29, 1958, and its main goal ever since has been to pioneer the future in space exploration, scientific discovery, and aeronautics research. Now, NASA is trying to complete a whole new mission, creating a human world on Mars. For more than 4 decades, NASA has been studying the planet to learn how it formed, the history of its geological processes, and whether or not it may have previously hosted life. They have started to collect such information to help them understand whether it could ever be a habitable planet for humans if or when the resources on Earth are no longer sustainable. In a mission called Mars 2020, NASA sent a rover named Perseverance to Mars. The goal of this mission was to explore new areas of the planet while also testing new technology that could possibly support future human travel to Mars. It successfully landed in 2021 and to this day is still being used to collect data. Perseverance has already broken all of the driving records of any of the previous rovers. The next big step for NASA is to successfully send a group of humans to Mars. However, there are several factors that are going to make this task quite difficult. There is a lot of uncertainty for both the scientists and the crew members who choose to partake in this mission, as no one has ever before completed a trip to Mars. It is estimated that the entire mission would last 3 full years, including the transit to Mars, the surface operations, and the transit back to Earth. And even if the journey is successfully completed, there are also concerns about the planet itself, specifically the extreme radiation levels. According to Marspedia, the average natural radiation level on Mars is 24 to 30 rads, which is about 40 to 50 times the average on Earth. Though NASA has successfully carried out many other trips into space, this trip is distinct as it is over a much bigger distance. Long-distance space missions are different from missions like the International Space Station, as they require autonomous teams to work together while living in isolated and confined environments for a long period of time. On the space station, team members have room to spread out and enjoy privacy in their everyday lives. On a mission to Mars, team members will live and work in a much smaller space, similar to the size of a small studio apartment, and will have very little privacy. This leads into one of the major concerns that scientists have about this mission: confinement. Isolating a small group of people to live and work together for a significantly long period of time in close quarters may have negative psychological impacts. These impacts include depression, a lack of motivation, and an unwillingness to collaborate with their peers. They would also likely experience something called status conflict, where the participants have perceived disputes about their relative status in the group's social hierarchy. Previous research on teams has found that status conflict is detrimental to team performance completing tasks. Scientists all over the world are currently studying this issue to better understand how isolation and confinement affects the development of status conflict in groups. In September of 2021, NASA, in collaboration with the Institute for Biomedical Problems, undertook a mission in Moscow, Russia called the Sirius 21 mission, in a facility called NEC. For this mission, a crew of 6 people had to live and work together in an isolation chamber for 8 months on a hypothetical mission around the moon. In order to understand the influence of cultural diversity, the crew consisted of 3 Russians, 2 Americans, and 1 Emirati. Of these, 3 were men and 3 were women. Over 200 research teams around the world participated in this study, where they analyzed a wide range of human performance challenges, including diet and nutrition, exercise, psychological well-being, and ability to work in a team. Each week they had to complete team tasks that tested their ability to strategically work together. In addition to this crew, there were 2 control groups, referred to as the Silver Team and the Black Team, that worked with the Sirius crew but stayed at Northwestern. Every other week the crew did a live simulation with a 5-minute one-way delay with one of the ground crews, alternating each time. Their communication was studied under a task called Project Red, where the crew worked with one of the twin teams to solve a complex problem to design water infrastructure using distributed information and expertise. However, each individual had their own priorities and information that often conflicted with that of their peers, and these issues had to be negotiated with the time delay. The mission ended on July 2, 2022, and the crew was finally able to come out of isolation. Let's take a look at the results. One pivotal moment of the experiment was an unplanned event that occurred on mission day 32 when a crew member was injured and had to leave the mission. Based on both the research data and interviews with the crew, it is clear that the loss of a member had a significant effect on crew relationships during the mission. Nevertheless, the crew had to proceed. The data comes to show that there were several notable differences between the groups. In a paper presented at IAC 2022 in Paris, the Northwestern research team reported that the serious crew members had a greater motivational effect on each other, but also were perceived as a hindrance more so than was observed with the twin crews who weren't isolated.
In isolation, you're cut off from those you love, the outside world, and so many things that are special. But we faced it with our crew members by our side.
It was really a team effort, a true team effort. And without all of you, we wouldn't have been able to make it through the 8 months.
There were days that were easy, and there were many days that were tough. But look at this crew. It's a band of colleagues, a band of brothers and sisters. We faced that challenge together by respecting each other, communicating, learning from one another, and by being kind.